The air is thin and freezing, a razor blade in the lungs. Sunlight glints off the frosted plexiglass of a B-17 waist gunner's window, revealing a brilliant, empty blue. Below, the ancient, sun-baked landscape of North Africa scrolls by, a rumpled map of ochre and dust. Inside the vibrating aluminum tube, 10 men are encased in fleece-lined leather, and the hum of 4 massive engines. The date is December 20th, 1942, and the war feels a million miles away. At his post, Technical Sergeant Forrest Vosler adjusts the dials on his radio set, the faint crackle of static a familiar comfort in the belly of the bomber. His fingers, numb with cold, trace the lines of his equipment, a musician tuning his instrument before a performance. This is a bombing mission deep into enemy territory, a high-stakes run against Axis airfields in Tunisia. The crew of the B-17 Flying Fortress moves with the practiced ease of men who trust their lives to each other and to the riveted metal shell surrounding them. They are a single organism, a 10-headed beast of dials, guns, and resolve, flying through the upper reaches of a hostile sky. The nose gunner scans the horizon, his eyes narrowed against the glare. The pilots hold the ship steady, their hands resting lightly on the yokes. And in the radio room, Vosler listens, the vital link between this lonely aircraft and the distant, unseen world of friendly forces. The mission is proceeding as planned, a routine of chilling cold and deafening engine drone, a stark contrast to the violence they are about to unleash, and the violence about to be unleashed upon them. Then the sky erupts. Black puffs of smoke, like ink blots from a demonic pen, blossom around the formation. The aircraft shudders as flak explodes nearby, peppering the fuselage with angry, metallic pops. A voice crackles over the intercom, sharp and urgent, calling out bandits at 2 o'clock high. German fighters, swift and deadly, peel out of the sun, their cannons winking with fire. Tracers, red and green, stitch across the blue canvas. The B-17's .50 caliber machine guns answer, their heavy, rhythmic thumping vibrating through the floor plates. Brass casings, hot and gleaming, spin through the frigid air inside the plane. The serene sky has become a three-dimensional hornet's nest of screaming engines and flying metal. The world for Forrest Vosler becomes a symphony of chaos. He relays information, his voice calm and steady amidst the cacophony, while his eyes dart to the small window, catching glimpses of the deadly ballet outside. A fighter screams past, its Black Cross insignia stark and clear for a fraction of a second. The tail gunner's voice strains with effort as he tracks a target. Suddenly, a heavier impact rocks the bomber, a deep, gut-wrenching thud that speaks of something more than shrapnel. A 20mm cannon shell has torn through the tail, and a moment later, the tail gunner reports he is hit, his voice weak. Vosler leaves his post, crawling down the narrow catwalk, the plane lurching around him. He reaches the wounded man, applies a field dressing to the gunner's injuries, his hands steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. He offers a word of reassurance before scrambling back to his vital post. He is barely settled in his seat when a second, more catastrophic explosion rips through his own compartment. A 20mm shell detonates just feet away, turning the radio room into a maelstrom of shrapnel and concussive force. A universe of white-hot pain erupts in Vosler's face. Splinters of metal, fiery and sharp, tear through his flesh, his arms, his legs. The world dissolves into a searing red haze, then snaps to absolute, terrifying black. He is thrown violently against the bulkhead, his head cracking against the metal frame. For a moment, there's only the roar in his ears and the coppery taste of blood. The oxygen mask is ripped from his face, and the thin, icy air burns his lungs. He tries to open his eyes, but there is nothing. No light, no shape, just an endless void painted with pulsing agony. He brings a trembling, gloved hand to his face and feels the warm, sticky wetness of his own blood. He has been blinded. The thought is a shard of ice in his mind, a terror more profound than the battle still raging outside. The bomber is grievously wounded, yawing and losing altitude. The pilot's voice, tinny and desperate, fills his headset, begging for a position report. But the radio set in front of Vosler is a mangled wreck of shattered vacuum tubes and severed wires, silenced by the same blast that took his sight. They are crippled, lost, and completely alone. Panic claws at the edges of his consciousness, but another instinct, deeper and more powerful, takes over. The crew needs him. The pilot's desperate call for a radio fix echoes in the darkness of his mind. He cannot see. He can barely think through the waves of pain, but he can feel. He drags his wounded body across the floor, his torn flight suit catching on jagged pieces of metal. His hands, slick with blood, search for the radio. He finds it, a twisted ruin of wires and steel. The air smells of ozone and burning insulation. This is his machine. He knows its every circuit, every connection by heart. Guided only by memory and a desperate sense of touch, Forrest Vosler begins to work. His bloody fingers trace the path of the wires, feeling for breaks. He finds a frayed end, then another. The pain is a constant, screaming fire, but he pushes it away, focusing on the task. He must splice them together. He fumbles with the wires, his movements clumsy, his body screaming in protest. A small spark jumps, and he feels the heat on his fingertips, a phantom flash in his world of black. He continues, his face a mask of grim concentration, sweat and blood mixing on his brow. He twists a connection here, bypasses a shattered component there, his mind rebuilding the schematic diagram from memory. Minutes stretch into an eternity. The plane continues its wounded descent, the engines groaning under the strain. The sounds of the battle have faded, replaced by the terrifying whistle of wind through the holes in the fuselage. Then, through his headset, a faint crackle. A whisper of static. Hope, fragile and precious, flickers in the darkness. He grabs the Morse code key, his fingers finding their familiar place. He begins to tap out a distress signal, an SOS, his movements weak but precise. He listens intently, straining to hear a response through the hiss. A faint signal answers. He has done it. He has re-established contact. Working with the navigator, Vosler stays at his post. Blind, bleeding, and lapsing in and out of consciousness, he holds a headset to his ear with one hand and operates the key with the other. He takes a bearing from the faint friendly signal, provides the navigator with the crucial information needed to plot a course for home. Every Morse code signal he receives is a lifeline. Every signal he sends is an act of pure will against the encroaching darkness of his injuries. The long flight back is an agonizing ordeal. The B-17, a flying wreck, shudders and groans its way across the Mediterranean. The rest of the crew, aware of the miracle being performed in the radio room, fly on with renewed determination. The English coast finally appears below, a smudge of green on the horizon. But the battered bomber cannot reach its home base. The engines are failing, fuel is critical, and the landing gear is damaged. The pilot makes the call. They are crash landing. Vosler hears the order and braces himself, slumped over his silent radio. The ground rushes up to meet them. There is a terrible, prolonged shriek of metal scraping against earth, the violent snapping of the plane's fuselage, and a final, bone-jarring impact that throws everything into chaos. Then silence. A profound, ringing silence broken only by the groan of stressed metal and the distant cry of gulls. The surviving crew members stumble out of the broken aircraft, emerging from the wreckage into the pale English sunlight. Medics are already sprinting across the field. They find Forrest Vosler unconscious, slumped over the radio, set he had willed back to life. His hands are still resting near the Morse key, his duty done. His actions, performed in a world of total darkness and excruciating pain, had guided his 9 crewmates out of the sky and delivered them from certain death. He had become their eyes when his own had been stolen by the savagery of war. His fight was over. He had navigated his brother's home. Tell me your favorite war story I should talk about next. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video.